이거를 이제 관로를 5개로 나눠가지고 각 5개의 관로가 그 흘러가는 수로가 다 차이가 있어요. 다 다르게 있어요. 그래서 5층 건물이 양쪽으로 있다고 보시면 되고 그게 수로예요. 물이 흘러가는.
The current generating system circulates 100,000 tons of water in the deep ocean engineering basin using winged wheels measuring 2.2 meters in diameter installed on each floor. The speed of water is different on each floor in order to reenact the deep ocean water current in a basin. But what is this system needed for?
이거 자체는 이제 환경 자체를 정확하게 여기서 모사할 수 있다는 거고요. 실험을 했을 때 그 환경을 정확하게 모사해야지 그 대상 구조물에 대한 걸리는 하중이라든가 운동이라든가 이런 부분을 정확하게 캐치를 할 수 있습니다. 상당히 중요한 그런 시설이라고 보시면 될 것 같습니다.
Throughout the 7 years of construction, from design to completion, Dr. Kim participated in every aspect of the project. He makes sure to collect all data produced during measurements and experiments conducted in the basin because it cost a lot of effort to build. Next to his bookshelf are some interesting things. Isn't that a photo of soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo?
이거는 제가 축구 매니아입니다. 축구를 너무 좋아하고 그렇게 하는데 다른 이제 업무 관계로 스페인 마드리드에 출장을 갔었는데요. 자기가 이제 원하는 선수들하고 같이 사진을 찍게 하는 게 있어서
축구에 진심이신가 보네요.
평소에 이제 점심시간을 이용해서 축구를 하고요.
예.
매일 같이 하고 이제 주말에 아침 일찍 새벽에 이제 와이프 몰래 나와가지고 하루 종일 축구하다가
예.
밤늦게 들어가서 와이프한테 혼났던 적도 많습니다.
Dr. Kim used to be an avid soccer player. He had to suspend his hobby because of research work. He wants to show off his soccer skills after a long time.
아이고, 야,
They are quite impressive.
그래도 예전에 한 3골 이상, 4골 정도는 넣었던 것 같아요. 그때 또 뭐 상대팀에 따라 달라지는데, 그래서 너무 많이 넣는다고 잠시 나와 있으라. 뭐 그런 이야기도 듣고 했습니다. 과거 이야기입니다. 자, 플레이.
The warm-up exercise is over and the game begins. As soon as the game begins, the ball rolls toward Dr. Kim. He skillfully dribbles it and passes forward. This time, he thrusts forward. Unfortunately, the opponent snatches the ball away. Dr. Kim gets another chance to score a goal, but misses it by a slim margin. Scoring a goal is not easy.
한 달 됐네요. 이제 자주 할 생각입니다. 오늘 날씨도 너무 좋고 기분이 상쾌해지네요.
Dr. Kim says that just like in soccer, teamwork is essential in research. This is the true reason why he loves soccer so much. At that moment, he finally scores a goal. He looks elated to score a goal after such a long time.
개인적으로 좋아하는 것도 있지만 단체 경기 중에서 팀워크를 위해서는 축구가 정말 좋은 것 같습니다.
After a short break, Dr. Kim returns to his lab. The researchers measure and check conditions for the next experiment.
오늘은 파도뿐만 아니라 바람, 조류 그런 복합 환경에서 그 운동 특성 평가 시험을 수행하도록 하겠습니다.
The team is going to recreate a complex marine environment today. by generating not only waves and currents, but the ocean wind as well.
바람 발생 장치 작동 준비됐습니까? 작동 시작 부탁드립니다.
When wind of maximum 20 meters per second is generated, the calm waves become taller and move with greater force.
파도하고 조류, 바람 시작해 주세요.
네, 파도 발생 시작하겠습니다.
Natural conditions in the ocean can be quite challenging. Mock ships are tested in complex environments with rarely experienced conditions, reenacted in the deep ocean engineering basin. Diverse technologies for using ships and offshore structures safely in extreme environments for a long time are being studied in this basin.
바람과 파도가 같이 중첩됐을 때 앞에 잠시 보일 수 있었는데요. 그린워터가 이렇게 발생하는 그런 부분도 볼 수 있었습니다. 다양한 계측 장비를 통해서 넘쳐오는 이제 갑판에 대해서 침수되는 부분이라든가 안 그러면 국부적인 이제 가속도 이런 부분을 저희가 계측을 하고 있습니다.
Dr. Kim anchored his life in the ocean, which he believes is part of his destiny. Dr. Kim has become a cornerstone of ensuring the safety of ships and offshore structures in Korea. His voyage toward making Korea a global maritime superpower continues.
저희 좌우명은 목계 지덕이 되겠습니다. 제가 하는 연구 분야에서 그동안 많은 어려운 부분이 있었습니다만 앞으로도 계속 흔들림 없이 열심히 노력을 하고 겸손하는 자세를 갖추자는 그런 뜻에서 제 좌우명을 목계 지덕으로 하였습니다.
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace, or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
President Lee Jae-myung has once again underlined the growing importance of the diplomacy and that national unity in politics is crucial. The National Assembly's first plenary session of the year came to a halt due to a filibuster, with lawmakers failing to narrow their differences on a second special prosecutor bill. The Bank of Korea decided to leave its key interest rate as it is at 2.5% amid a weakened Korean won and rising inflation. A day after returning from Japan, President Lee stressed the need to bridge the divides and work together to safeguard South Korea's national interests. His remarks come a day ahead of a lunch meeting with leaders from across the political spectrum. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yujin starts us off.
Having wrapped up back-to-back summits in China and Japan, President Lee Jae-myung stressed the growing importance of diplomacy during a weekly meeting with his top aides on Thursday.
국제 질서의 불확실성이 증폭될수록 영내의 평화와 안정이 기요합니다. 그렇기 때문에 상호 존중과 이해를 바탕으로 갈등 속에서도 균형점을 찾고 호혜적인 접점을 늘려가는 지혜로운 실용 외교가 어느 때보다 중요합니다.
President Lee cited rising instability in Latin America and the Middle East, apparently pointing to the political turmoil in Venezuela following recent U.S. military strikes and the capture of President Nicolas Maduro, as well as growing anti-government protests in Iran. He went on to stress that national unity, particularly in politics, is essential.
만일 우리 내부가 분열하고 반목한다면 외풍에 맞서 국익을 지킬 수가 없고 애써 거둔 외교 성과조차도 물거품이 될 것이 분명합니다.
These remarks come as tensions continue to escalate between the ruling Democratic Party and the main opposition, People Power Party. On Thursday, the National Assembly opened a plenary session and placed a bill proposed by the DP to appoint a second special counsel to launch follow-up probes into former President Yoon Suk-yeol, former First Lady Kim Gun-hee, and the death of a Marine during flood rescue operations in 2023. In response, the opposition bloc, including the PPP and the Reform Party, launched a filibuster. PPP leader Chang Dong-hyuk began a hunger strike on Thursday afternoon. The opposition is calling for a special counsel investigation into allegations of illegal lobbying by the Unification Church involving senior DP politicians, as well as claims of bribery cover-ups linked to candidate nominations during past local and general elections. Now, more spotlight will turn to President Lee's lunch meeting on Friday, where he has invited the leadership of 7 parliamentary parties, including the ruling Democratic Party and the main opposition, People Power Party. The PPP has previously indicated it will not attend. 송유진, Arirang News.
In related news, a filibuster has brought the National Assembly's first plenary session of the year to a halt as lawmakers clash over a second special prosecutor bill. Our Moon Hae-ryun files this report from the National Assembly.
The National Assembly plunged into a standoff during its first plenary session of the year, after the ruling Democratic Party pushed ahead with a second comprehensive special prosecutor bill, triggering a filibuster by the main opposition People Power Party. The standoff followed the collapse of last-minute talks ahead of Thursday afternoon session, as the parties failed to narrow their differences over how to handle the Unification Church probe. Earlier floor leaders met under Speaker Woo Won-sik, but talks broke down as the Democratic Party pushed to advance the second special prosecutor bill. The People Power Party countered that unresolved disputes over the Unification Church probe must be addressed first. As the bill was put to the floor during the afternoon session, the People Power Party immediately launched a filibuster, calling the legislation politically motivated and accusing the ruling bloc of reviving past investigations for electoral gain. Opposition leaders argued the bill targets what they described as dead power, while ignoring allegations involving figures tied to the ruling camp.
What the public does not want is a far-fetched special prosecutor scheme to shield ruling party scandals and target the opposition for local elections.
The Democratic Party rejected those claims, accusing the opposition of blocking efforts to fully uncover alleged insurrection and abuse of power. DP floor leader Han Byung-do said the filibuster amounts to shielding wrongdoing, while leaving more than 180 long-stalled livelihood bills effectively asleep on the assembly floor.
The Democratic Party will end the filibuster with a termination vote tomorrow, pass the second special prosecutor bill, and turn the Assembly's focus back to livelihoods.
Under National Assembly rules, a filibuster can only be terminated after 24 hours have elapsed and at least 3/5 of lawmakers vote in favor. With the ruling bloc taking up the majority, the bill is expected to pass by Friday afternoon. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung met with an influential UAE official at the Blue House today for talks on follow-up measures to cooperation in the defense industry. He hosted Abu Dhabi's Executive Affairs Authority Chairman Khaldoon Khalifa Al Mubarak and discussed the ways to materialize bilateral cooperation in the defense industry, AI, and energy. He said that he wished the relations would last 100 years. He earlier expressed hopes that Korea could cooperate with the UAE's plans for its centennial in 2071. The president went to Abu Dhabi in November on a state visit and held a summit with President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, whom he invited to visit Korea. The government will improve the business regulations to tackle challenges faced by small and medium-sized businesses. Intentions to this end were shared during a policy coordination meeting at the government complex here in Seoul earlier on this Thursday, during which officials vowed to place priority on improving a total of 79 regulatory tasks. Prime Minister Kim Min-seok said the move seeks to align regulations with the reality on the ground. He also said the government will reform 67 government certification systems to ease the burden on businesses. South Korea's central bank held its first monetary policy meeting of the year to hold the benchmark interest rate steady at 2.5%, marking a fifth consecutive hold. Our Kim Jun-hong has the details.
The Bank of Korea has kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at an annual 2.5% amid the weakening Korean won. The unanimous decision was announced on Thursday following the central bank's first monetary policy meeting of the year.
The board judged it appropriate to maintain the current base rate while monitoring policy conditions. As inflation is expected to stabilize, growth is improving, and risks to financial stability persist. This decision was unanimous.
This marks the fifth consecutive session the board has stood pat on the rate, having paused its easing cycle in the second half of last year. The central bank noted that this year's economic growth is likely to broadly match the 1.8% forecast revised upward last November, citing a recovery in the semiconductor sector and improving growth in major economies. It added that this solid growth momentum has reduced the immediate need for a rate cut. However, uncertainties remain, particularly regarding the foreign exchange market. The rising $1 exchange rate and continued gains in housing prices in the Seoul metropolitan area were cited as key factors behind the decision. Governor Lee was direct when asked if the currency volatility was the primary driver.
To the question of whether the exchange rate was the biggest factor, the answer is yes. I don't believe the stabilization policies at the end of the year were ineffective, but rather it was an occasion to confirm where our weaknesses lie.
The governor added that monetary policy decisions going forward will be made with close attention to inflation trends and risks to financial stability at home and abroad. In a shift from the Bank of Korea's previous monetary statements, its statement for Thursday's rate decision made no mention of a potential rate cut in the future. This is being seen as a sign of a possible shift in the direction of future interest rates. Kim Jun-hong, Arirang News.
Trade Minister Yo Han-gu delayed his flight back after U.S. President Donald Trump signed a proclamation imposing tariffs on goods imported into and re-exported from the U.S. Park Jun-han explains.
South Korea's Trade Minister Yo Han-gu decided to extend his stay in Washington amid concerns over U.S. tariffs on semiconductors. Minister Yo, who was visiting the U.S., announced on Wednesday local time that he would delay his return to Seoul by a day to assess the implications of U.S. President Donald Trump's latest proclamation on tariffs and trade issues. Speaking to reporters, Yo emphasized the need to closely monitor the developments, stating he was carefully watching the matter, but adding that it was difficult to comment on at this time. He added that his team is analyzing potential impacts on Korean companies. On Wednesday, Trump signed a proclamation imposing a 25% tariff on certain advanced chips, including NVIDIA and AMD's products manufactured by TSMC in Taiwan and imported into the U.S. for re-export. The U.S. administration framed the action under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, citing national security risks from semiconductor imports that do not contribute to domestic supply chains or manufacturing capabilities. The proclamation effectively targets re-exports to China, allowing the U.S. to collect 25% of the sales value as a fee. However, the information reported that Beijing has advised domestic firms to purchase NVIDIA's H200 only under special circumstances, aiming to reduce China's reliance on foreign technology and strengthen its own industry. For South Korea, a major semiconductor exporter, Trump's proclamation raises concerns about wider tariff expansions. The White House fact sheet indicated that Trump may impose broader tariffs on imports of semiconductors and their derivative products, as well as an accompanying tariff offset program to incentivize domestic manufacture, as previously announced. The United States' actions could directly impact Korea's core industry, as any tariffs on re-exported chips could disrupt supply chains and increase costs for Korean tech giants Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix. 박준환, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump has said that it is Ukrainian President Zelenskyy who's the main impediment to resolving the 4-year-old war, not Russian President Vladimir Putin. Cha Young has this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Ukraine, not Russia, is delaying a possible peace agreement. In an exclusive interview with Reuters in the Oval Office on Wednesday, Trump stated that Russian President Vladimir Putin is prepared to end the war, while President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has been more hesitant. Trump has often criticized both Putin and Zelenskyy, but Reuters noted that this time he appeared especially downbeat about the Ukrainian leader. The rhetoric sharply contrasts with that of European allies, who have consistently maintained that Moscow has little interest in bringing its war in Ukraine to an end, further highlighting Trump's apparent dissatisfaction with Zelenskyy. Trump also mentioned the violent crackdown on anti-government protesters in Iran, saying Iranian opposition figure Reza Pahlavi seems very nice, but questioned whether he could rally enough support internally to eventually assume power. Pahlavi has been based in the U.S. since before his father, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the former Shah of Iran, was toppled in the 1979 Islamic Revolution, but has become a prominent voice in the protests. Trump's remarks went further in casting doubt on Pahlavi's leadership prospects, following his statement last week that he had no plans to meet with him. Trump added that he has no plans to fire Jerome Powell despite a Justice Department criminal investigation into the Federal Reserve chair, but it was too early to say what he would ultimately do. Trump also said that a president should have something to say about Fed policy, and as he's made a lot of money with business, he has a better understanding than, quote, too late Jerome Powell. Trump repeatedly attacked Powell and the Federal Reserve for failing to cut interest rates last year, labeling him a numbskull, a dumb guy, and an obvious Trump hater. Powell's term expires in May. Cha Young, Arirang News.
The lights have dimmed in Las Vegas, marking the end of CES 2026. Our Kim Do-yeon has returned from Las Vegas and joins us in the studio to wrap up the week's biggest trends. Welcome back, Do-yeon.
Thank you. It was a hectic week, but very productive.
I'm sure. Well, Do-yeon, every year there's one buzzword or theme that dominates the show floor. Now, what was the hottest topic of CES 2026?
Well, before we get there, I wanted to sort of show you the numbers. From the latest numbers, although subject to audit, 148,000 people attended this year's event, with 55,000 of them from overseas like me. So it was a massive show, and this year there was a clear trend. If last year was about the software of AI, this year was undeniably about the hardware, specifically robotics. We saw a major shift from digital AI to physical AI. The hottest topic was the humanoid. Companies are no longer just showing prototypes behind glass. They're showing robots that can walk, work, and interact with us safely. Now, I spoke with Brian Comiskey from the Consumer Tech Association, the organizers of CES, and he noted that this year was a turning point for how robots fit into our lives. And it turns out South Korean players also didn't go unnoticed.
I think that what really stood out to me this year was the leap in robotics. Humanoids had quite a big year, with Hyundai showcasing their Atlas humanoid robot. We saw the K Humanoid Alliance from Korea bring together a variety of different startups to really showcase how robotics are getting to this point where they're able to complement human labor and activity, because it's about coexisting with humanity and rather than displacing.
Right, and as he mentioned, the key word is coexisting. The industry focus has moved from robots replacing humans to robots working alongside us as partners.
Coexisting with humanity, that's a very significant distinction. Now, beyond the heavy machinery and robots, Do-yeon, what else stood out? Because I heard there were some interesting developments in the lifestyle technology, right?
Right, and the second biggest trend, for me at least, was the beauty tech. Now, last year, CES actually introduced a dedicated beauty tech category for the first time, signaling that this is no longer niche, it's mainstream. It falls under the broader theme of longevity, using tech to live longer and better. We saw incredible innovations from Korean companies. Of course, K-Tech is a strength for the nation. For instance, Kolmar Korea showcased a device that uses AI to analyze skin and treat scars instantly.
Or one of my favorites was Kolmar Korea did an AI-powered precision scar treatment and coverage system device. So working to the idea that some people, when they want to get that feeling of better, maybe they don't want to have the stories associated with a scar that they have. Well, how about being able to cover it up with a tech device that can precisely treat it? And that's something that Kolmar Korea was doing that I found to be really quite compelling.
You know, that leads us to our final point. You mentioned Hyundai and Kolmar. It sounds like Korean companies had a massive presence there. Now, how did they perform overall compared to the global competition?
Now, they swept the innovation awards. So around 50% of all innovation honorees this year were Korean firms. Whether it was the big conglomerates like Samsung and LG or the startups in Eureka Park, Korean companies were dominant. It wasn't just about attendance numbers, it was about the quality of the technology. When I asked the CTA about the perception of Korean companies, this year they emphasized that Korea is now seen as a hotbed for cutting-edge tech.
Korean innovation showed up, and that was clear in the presence of Hyundai, LG, Samsung. But as I said, Kolmar Korea, Persona AI, Saragem, other companies of all sizes really showcase that Korean innovation is on the cutting edge and is pushing forward the entire technology sector.
Right, so to sum it up, from heavy industry to beauty, Korean companies are not just following trends, they're actually setting them now. And for consumers, the good news is that many of these products, including the beauty devices and smart home appliances, are scheduled to hit the global market within the first half of this year. It really felt like the gap between science fiction and consumer reality has finally closed, with technology that feels immediate rather than futuristic. Now, walking the floor, the energy wasn't about what might happen in 10 years, but what will be in our living rooms in 10 months.
Toyeon, thank you for the wrap-up today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
At a time when K-beauty is garnering ever more attention, the country is also looking to boost the industry through further legislative support. Our An Sung-jin talked to both the private and public sector stakeholders on this issue.
Once a mid-sized player, this K-beauty company now boasts a market value that rivals industry heavyweights. It's been about 10 years since its company took off, relatively young by industry standards. Yet today, its influence extends far beyond the domestic market, reaching consumers around the world.
These products are built on strong technological capabilities, and these R&D-driven technologies resonate with consumers. The already high share of overseas sales through its unique products gives the company a competitive edge too.
Profits from overseas markets now account for nearly 80% of total revenue, further pushing the company to expand its global reach. Firms like this are rapidly adapting their distribution networks while closely tracking consumer preferences and beauty trends in individual overseas markets, surpassing the strategies of traditional conglomerates.
You guys have so many brands, right? So it's a high competition, so it must be good, otherwise you can't survive in these industries. So I just really want to try because it's like very popular.
Because it's really very popular. I don't know, it makes my skin really look better. I mean, I'm trying like healthier maybe.
Cosmetics are South Korea's top export category among small and medium-sized enterprises, and the country currently ranks as the world's third largest cosmetics exporter.
Powered by cutting-edge technology and price competitiveness, South Korea's cosmetics industry is expanding globally. In 2025, cosmetics exports topped $100 billion, setting a new record high.
The Lee Jae-myung administration has also acknowledged the need to further foster and support the cosmetics industry as part of its national policy agenda. While most existing laws focus on regulatory oversight, this lawmaker proposed legislation to expand investment in R&D and exports across the Korean cosmetics sector.
K-beauty is already globally recognized, but the industry itself is largely made up of small and medium-sized companies. The bill is designed to support the entire cosmetics value chain, from research and development to manufacturing, production, distribution, and sales, covering every stage of the industry.
Through broader government initiatives like this legislation, officials expect stronger global competitiveness, increased exports, and a more innovative future for South Korea's cosmetics industry. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Today feels a bit less cold, but we do need to watch out for fine dust and yellow dust blowing in from overseas. Starting this afternoon, yellow dust has arrived around the country. By late tonight, ultrafine dust is expected to reach very bad levels in some areas. Meanwhile, milder weather will continue through the weekend, staying warmer than usual for this time of year. Temperatures in most regions climbed back above freezing this morning. Seoul started the day at 1.9 degrees Celsius, then rose to 8 degrees, about 6 degrees above the season average. Seoul and Daegu will start off at -1 degree tomorrow morning, Gyeongju at -2 degrees. Highs will rise to 5 degrees in Seoul, 15 degrees in Gyeongju and Busan. In the eastern areas, dry weather advisories remain in effect and strong wind warnings have been issued along the east coast. Please be careful. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
올해가 한일 양국이 그리고 한일 양국민이 더욱 밀도 있는 교류와 협력을 통해 진정으로 더 가까워지고 함께 미래를 향해 힘차게 나아가는 새로운 60년의 원년이 되기를 진심으로 기대합니다.
今回の大統領のご訪問を皮切りに本年が日韓関係をさらなる高みに発展させる年となることを期待しております。
Knock knock! The magical door to the world of K-animation is swinging wide open. Meet your instant new BFF, the adorable Catch. Tina Ping will have you hooked from the very first glance. Need a hand? Our Robocar Poli Rescue team is always zooming in to save the day. How about tagging along on Ping Fong and Pal's super exciting quest to reclaim their lost magic? With the mysterious life forms Cabion by your side, you can become a Cabion master and save humanity like the total hero. Protecting children's innocence while igniting their boundless imaginations. That's the magic of Korean animation. K-animation, the ultimate bestie for kids worldwide.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gyan. The Bank of Korea held its base rate steady at 2.5% today, extending a freeze that's now lasted 5 straight meetings. Governor Lee Chang-yong pointed to renewed exchange rate volatility as a key reason, suggesting that FX dynamics, not just inflation, are increasingly shaping monetary policy. Meanwhile, President Lee Jae-myung returned from a summit in Tokyo with Prime Minister Takaichi, where both sides emphasized cooperation on supply chains and reaffirmed Korea's push to join the CPTPP. But Japan has hinted that support may hinge on long-standing issues like seafood import restrictions. So what do these two latest developments on rates and regional trade tell us about where Korea is heading, both economically and strategically? For answers to this, we connect to Song Soo-young, Professor of Business and Economics at Chungang University. A big welcome, Professor Song.
Yeah, good evening too, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. And also joining us is Shin Myung-gyu, Associate Professor of Economics at Yonsei University. Good to see you, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
So, like I've said in our intro, the BOK froze the base rate at 2.5% today, and Governor Lee made it clear that the exchange rate was a key factor. So, Professor Song, how do you assess this latest decision, and does it mark a shift towards a more FX-sensitive policy stance, do you think?
Yeah, as the concern clearly shown in his the chairman of the Bank of Korea's remarks about the current economic situation, and he said, yes, the exchange rate is the foremost issues and the concern about the Korean economy right now. So far, we have witnessed some in the third quarter in 2025, where we have been a little bit surprised growth of the economy, but that has been a little bit subdued for the fourth quarter and 0.6% or so. Overall, the economic growth rate achieved the level of 1% growth rate of GDP, but still we have a long way to go, is because currently, as far as I know, the outbound investment, particularly the individuals and some financial investors would like to hold some the foreign assets, and that's why the Korean won has experienced such a steady depreciation over the past several months. So to that regard, well, later on, I'm going to talk about it, but recently some verbal intervention by the president has helped to relieve the burden. But clearly, this should be resolved not within a short period, but relatively most of the Bank of Korea and the Korean government and some other national pension agent, they have to make efforts to stabilize the Korean won and dollar exchange rate.
Right, definitely. So markets could definitely read that as a shift towards a more FX-aware policy making in that regard. But the BOK cited exchange rate pressure largely from global drivers as a key reason for holding the rates. So, Professor Shim, to what extent is FX now becoming a primary constraint on monetary policy?
Yeah, I agree with the BOK that the downward pressure on the value of Korean won is really important. Even the BOK keeps the same rate again, although if it really concerns about that, maybe it has changed its stance on the monetary policy. The main purpose of the central bank is to keep low and stable inflation rate, and at the same time to manage people's perceptions on the future inflation rate. Other factors, such as the political concerns, are of the second-order importance to central banks, I think. In that sense, considering the possibility that the weak Korean won can further contribute to higher import price, which can pass through to the consumer price level in the short to medium run, seems to be really important at this point. Although the BOK itself cannot really change the trend of the exchange rate by itself, but taking this into account, I think it will be a really important factor behind the monetary policy decision. And if there's no significant actions taken by the government or the central bank, people will become more and more pessimistic about the inflation rate because at some point it will pass through to the usual price levels that we see every day, and losing the right timing to respond to such belief changes might result in large welfare loss in the future. And also, as the interest rate reversal between Korea and the US has been observed for more than a year, it also contributes to the current capital outflow and the weak Korean won. So I think at some point, the BOK might change its stance on the monetary policy to deal with this kind of problem.
Right. It's also concerning for many of our public. And in fact, the fact that this time the rate freeze being held with a unanimous decision, 5 out of 6 members signaled the rates are likely to stay at this level for the next 3 months. So how does that suggest that BOK has effectively closed the door for near-term easing, Professor Song?
I believe that the primary reason BOK is concerned about exchange rate and the focus on the exchange rate stabilization is clearly linked with some issues of our Korean, South Korean investment in the U.S. We have pledged some $350 billion investment. Then if the exchange rate fluctuate too much and depreciate too much, it could turn out to be a really burden to our Korean economy. As far as that is why the government and the BOK has prioritized the stabilization of exchange rate, and also the Minister of Finance has paid a visit to Washington and induced his counterpart of Besant has made some bubble intervention. But overall, the issue is about whether to this Korean situation is like a settle point, because if the exchange rate, the Korean won is depreciated, it is favorable for the exporting companies such as Samsung, Hyundai, whatever, and to avoid to reduce the effect of the tariff. But however, on the other hand, this could be a really burden for the South Korean government to make an investment in the United States. And each year, the $200 billion will be installed to pay $20 billion each year. So that is why we are, and not only Korea, but also the United States is also worried about the situation. So the best one is currently is a stabilization and make the minimum of some fluctuation of the exchange rate.
A very important point you're making. But let's widen the lens a little bit right now. President Lee just concluded his summit with the Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi in Tokyo, where both sides emphasized supply chain cooperation. Professor Shim, how significant is that element within Korea's broader economic security strategy?
Yeah, that is really, really important for South Korea. We already have an experience of supply chain disruption from rising political tension in 2019. Because of the rise political tension between Korea and Japan 6 years ago, Japanese government prohibited export of key semiconductor materials to Korea. Because the semiconductor industry plays a very important role in the Korean economy, it could have a negative impact on the Korean economy, although it turns out that such a tension did not significantly affect the Korean economy at that point. While it was not that significant at that point, if such a disruption occurs more frequently, it would have a very harmful effect on the Korean economy because it takes costs and time and a lot of effort to diversify the supply chain. And the massive supply chain disruption during the COVID-19 crisis also gives us the lesson that such a problem may really have large and persistent negative impacts on the macroeconomy. In addition, heightened geographical risk itself is usually found to be negative impacts on the aggregate economy as well. And all this suggests that to keep stable and predictable relationship with other countries, including Japan and also China, is really crucial for South Korea.
So it's not really just short-term about trade, it's about long-term resilience as well. Now, building on that, the summit, it also touched on deeper regional integration, including Korea's bid to join the CPTPP, of course. Professor Song, what do you see as the strategic motivation behind this renewed push?
Let me go back several years when actually Japan has opposed Korean participation in CPTPP. And the primary reason is because of the Fukushima's seafood import is banned by Korea. And also Japan has started some kind of restriction on the export of 3 critical materials to South Korea, such as hydrogen fluoride and fluorine-based etching gas and the photoresistor. But South Korea has overcome that blockage of the supply of the important materials for semiconductor. So this kind of some geo-economic issue will come and from time to time. And in the year of 2026, particularly about the we need some recalibration of all the outlooks of the economic development. The reason is now the United States has become a kind of new kind of empire, and they do not refrain from showing their desire and aspiration to become some one top in the Western hemisphere. And that implies that multilateral trade and some kind of supply chain relationship could be very vulnerable in upcoming future. To that regards, we need to take some portfolio position, not only in diplomatics and but also in diplomacy but also in some geo-economic issues could be a really hot issue, and some multipolar position trade will become some continuous shape of the international trade. As a result, we need to not only participate in RCEP but also to make the most of the CPTPP, not just the supply chain, but also we need to have some export, import, and also we need to increase the domestic demand or consumption, and also so. This is the very important position, and even Joseph Stiglitz has offered an idea that against the United States, most of the world, rest of the world should make a free trade and to isolate the U.S. So, but that is too extreme. But at least from South Korea's perspective, we need to make some very balancing position, and the settle point moment is coming.
Right, since a lot of changes are happening globally, so it's really time for South Korea to recalibrate. And a TPP push would be a good start for that. But Japan, from Japan, its support actually says that it has some strings attached, most notably the issue of Korean restrictions on Japanese seafood imports. So, Professor Shim, from an economic perspective, how much leverage does Tokyo really hold here, and what kind of cost-benefit balance is Seoul facing?
Yeah, the main leverage that Japan holds is that we need support of Japan to join the CPTPP. CPTPP requires a country that is willing to join it should receive support from all member countries. So if Japan is not willing to support Korea, South Korea would not be able to join it. So that's the leverage that Tokyo holds. And then we need to think about the benefit and the cost of joining the CPTPP for South Korea. In principle, it allows Korean firms to export their goods to the member countries at a lower rate. From the last year, as is pointed out by Professor Song, trade uncertainty initiated from the U.S. tariff shock and all the trade deals has become really an important issue for small open economies like Korea. The share of export in GDP exceeds 30% in Korea, and this figure clearly shows the need to join the trade deal like CPTPP to spur the economic growth. And the cost is that the average Koreans are reluctant to open seafood markets, especially after 2011, the earthquake in Japan, and the government might lose its part of popularity among Korean people because it might be critically related to people's concerns on their health.
Right, that really puts us all in a tricky position economically and politically both. But beyond politics, let's talk about the core question that we're all curious about. So how much real economic value could CPTPP membership bring to South Korea, Professor Song?
Clearly, it has a very beneficial benefit is generated from some export market expansion for the export, because currently even Korea is Professor Shim has mentioned that it's smaller open economy, but I don't think Korea is not any more small, but relatively this territory itself is small, but power and strength and economic capacity and technology innovation level has been already reached the highest level. And but here, CPTPP is the fourth largest some economic bloc left next to the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, and then European Union, and then the third one is RCEP. Now we have RCEP become effective in the year of 2022. Therefore, we could expand our market, export market, and also we could not only to the RCEPs, including the China and the several less developed countries and developed countries. And also we need to, in addition, CPTPP itself is really beneficial to our Korea. And then what I would like to suggest is we must not ignore the India and Russia, because they could be a really very important our counterpart of trade, and then we could be positioned as a very balanced position. But it's very difficult to keep it because geoeconomic issues, the weaponization of rare earths or whatever the economic materials could be used as a weapon against to block and to cause harm and damage on the economy. So to that regard, we need to maintain a very cautious, but we need to make a progress in trade and also the domestic economic growth overall to help the overall Korean economy to thrive in the future.
Right. So speaking of progress, Professor Song, of course, joining the pact doesn't come without domestic consequences. So what kind of policy changes from areas like agricultural, digital trade, or economical standards would Korea need to make to meet CPTPP commitments?
Me or
Professor Song?
Do you ask me? Yeah. Clearly, the agriculture and the issues and the fishery industry could be sacrificed. So, to that regards, the government be prepared to provide some subsidy or whatever the help, and also some upgrade of the fishery stocks and some agricultural stocks. For example, to make use of the AI device and some digital device to help grow the cultivation of the some fishes and in the ocean. So cultivating of the fisheries could be help reduce the cost and to expand our products to be sold in Japan and other countries. So that is clearly some difficulties for some agriculture and the fishery industry, but the government could help those industry people could overcome the difficulties when we participate in the CPTPP.
Right. So we're expecting some tough conversations ahead on that. So given all these political and economic hurdles ahead, Professor Shim, what do you think would be a realistic timeline for Korea's CPTPP accession?
Yeah, I think it will take several years, even when the will of the government to participate in CPTPP is strong. Most of all, as was pointed out earlier, it will clearly have a negative impact on the agricultural and related industry, which is the weakest part of our economy. Traditionally, it was really difficult for the government to persuade workers working in such an industry. If we look back what was discussed during the trade deal with the US last year, whether the government will open more of the sectors was a really important issue. So I think it will take some time to persuade people to agree on joining CPTPP, because it can have some negative impacts on some sectors and some people would be adversely affected. And the uncertain relationship between Korea and Japan might also prolong the process. Although the talk between President Lee and Prime Minister Takaichi seems to be successful at this point, we had a long experience that kind of good atmosphere between the two countries changed dramatically after some dates. And because it is required to obtain all members' agreement on joining the treatment, keeping good relationship with Japan would be really important. So if we look back the historical episodes and data, it usually takes more than 2 years to make a FTA deal with the other countries, and I guess we can think of it as a kind of benchmark. So it takes at least 2 or more than 3 years.
Right, so we would have to be a little bit more patient on that, but thank you so much for giving us a big picture of the timeline. We'll have to leave our discussion right here tonight. Many thanks to Professor Song for your insights.
My pleasure.
And Professor Shim, of course, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.
어렸을 때 아버지가 클래식을 좋아하셔서 자연스럽게 공연장을 이제 가족들이 다 같이 가게 되었는데 그때 포피아노 연주를 제가 실제로 가서 봤었는데 그때 이제 너무 멋있다 생각이 들어서 부모님께 피아노를 하고 싶다고 졸랐습니다. 저조차도 누군가의 연주를 보고 이렇게 피아니스트를 꿈꿔왔듯이 누군가도 제 연주를 듣고 다양한 감정을 이렇게 느꼈으면 좋겠어요.